tasked with solving this debt crisis that we're in. When their demand for XRP starts, that's when you're going to see significant price appreciation. I've talked about, an ETP or an ETF here in the US that is BlackRock, spot ETF for XRP. Confident that that is coming at some point. We saw Wisdom Tree withdraw their S1 for their XRP ETF. Unusual. Not sure why they did that. Maybe they thought they couldn't compete, that there was already enough competition on that asset, and that's why they withdrew it. Or maybe they know that a big player is coming to town, and they didn't want to be in opposition or competition with them. I have to see which one of those it was. But I do expect here, I'll take a gamble. I think in 2026, we are going to see a BlackRock ETF on XRP, a spot ETF for XRP, or some type of product for XRP from BlackRock. And again, I think their incentives are aligned with Ripple and for the price appreciation of XRP to be able to solve the crisis that we're going to see, the credit call globally when the reverse carry trade unwinds. Cotton Clarks says, legend. What's up? Thank you for the super chat and the kind words. Spot silver is off the chart. Could it be hidden black swan that could sneak up in before oil flares up to trigger the reverse carry trade? I think it puts like banks and institutions on their back foot. They already have huge unrealized losses. And if it's like the reverse carry trade and oil or the straw that breaks the camel's back, like they can deal with one problem, and silver is a problem for them. Believe me. Now, many people believe that JP Morgan has gone long on silver and being able to swap that out. What's reverse repo at? Let's take a look here. On New Year's Eve, reverse repo. Reverse repo spiked to $75 billion. Actually, it was $105 billion, which is the highest that we have seen in a long time. Back in 2023, we were at trillions in reverse repo. This is the highest spike we've seen in the short term here after a pretty extended period where we really didn't have much at all. Yeah, up to 105 billion on New Year's, and then back down here. Really just a couple billion each night that the Fed is injecting into the economy for the banks lending them. All that being said, I think that could have been what they used to go long on silver and take those positions and kind of, hedge and make sure that they were going to be okay and solvent. I don't see that it's going to be a crisis. I mean, JP Morgan owns a lot of silver. The higher the price of silver goes, they actually are offsetting their unrealized losses. Other banks also may own large portions of physical silver. And the higher the price goes, they're offsetting unrealized losses. So I don't believe that silver is going to be the catalyst for, the Black Swan event. I do think that, people are going to do well on silver and have done well on silver. And I've seen a lot of people start to sell their silver. Again, not advocating for or against that, just talking about what I'm seeing, from clients and people in the market. But it is going to be oil. It's going to be oil that causes the reverse carry trade to unwind. Again, my personal opinion, just one guy on the internet. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Not the smartest guy in the world. I listen to people smarter than me all the time and try to, piece stuff together. I listen to over 40 people across, channels and different things, read their stuff on a regular basis in order to put together my economic outlook and where things are moving. And hopefully you're doing the same. Hopefully you're watching me and a bunch of other people in order to be able to, figure out what's actually going on. Southside Crypto says JPY at 2.3 on the 10-year. How's the carry trade looking? I'd expect to start seeing an unwind soon. Japan is standing on the edge of a cliff. I agree. again, I think around 2.4, 2.5 is where we start to see a rotation, especially if we see the Fed come out this week, or actually at the end of the month, and lower interest rates. And if we have, Japan raise interest rates aggressively during their meeting this month, could happen a lot sooner than later. And we got Davos this week. We didn't even talk about Davos outside of Project Agora that was mentioned earlier. Big stuff usually happens when Davos is in effect, and a lot of changes coming down the pike here. So, highly recommend you keep your head on a swivel and continue to watch the news that's coming out of Davos. We got Brad Garlinghouse at Davos as well. This is a good one. They say, praiseworthy life. They say, Jake, my bro in Christ. Thank you. Appreciate you, man. God bless you. I hold XRP ETFs at Fidelity. Very nice. Are they as good as XRP coins when it comes to price appreciation, drawbacks other than not my keys, not my coins? Well, I think a lot of people that are holding the bearer asset, XRP, or other crypto tokens, will be able to generate yield by participating in institutional DeFi applications by the end of 2026 here. So if you wanted additional cash flow against or off of the XRP, an ETF is not going to be able to do that. There was one dividend paying XRP ETF that pays 3%, I think. Regular ETFs that are spot, you're only going to see the appreciation. You're not going to get additional cash flow or additional benefits. Now, you can margin those, actually probably at a higher LTV than you can through some of the other lenders that are out there, and maybe even at a better rate than what's available out in the market against the bearer asset today. Over the long term, I think that you'll be able to borrow against the bearer asset at a lower interest rate and a higher LTV than what you'll be able to do on the ETFs. So, things change in today's climate. Seems like a great allocation if you're just looking for price appreciation. Again, I think that that's probably also, one more tick down the risk curve than holding the actual asset. So like Evernorth is a couple ticks up the risk curve because it's a DAT. An XRP ETF is probably a lower risk option to be able to get an allocation to XRP versus holding the bearer asset itself. Now, less risk, less return, more risk, more return is kind of how that works, right? So I think you'll have more flexibility and opportunities to be able to use the XRP to your benefit over the long term. But the ETF is going to give you a one-to-one price appreciation. They hold a certain amount of XRP per share of the ETF. If they have to do a stock split over the long term on the ETF, they could. Or they could just tokenize it and people could own 1,000th of a share, later on, like I think they probably will. And yeah, so, that's my 2 cents on holding XRP itself versus the ETF. And hopefully that helps you. Again, not financial advice, just hopefully providing you some education and entertainment. Marlon Jordan says, Evernorth announcing they will IPO in Q1 of 2026. Does the success of the Evernorth IPO depend on the price of XRP Q1? Just wink if the answer is yes. I'll know more Wednesday. But yeah, I don't think XRP, they already have 1 billion XRP. They're going to do a SPAC. I think the price could appreciate from where it's at today just based on them completing the SPAC. Again, if they are able to execute on the vision, which I think Ashish and David Schwartz and Michael Arrington will all be able to do that. There's a lot of other good people there at Evernorth that came from Ripple or other places to help them execute on that vision. I think they'll do very well. And an IPO's not quite the correct term. Again, it's a SPAC, which is an acquisition of the fund through a public company and then a renaming of the public company. So, there will be a public listing. It's really kind of like you can front run it and buy it now if you think it's going to do well. Again, not advocating for or against that. Can't give you financial advice. But if you did want a couple ticks up the risk curve from holding XRP itself, and you do anticipate, things appreciating aggressively, I do think Evernorth is going to be. I personally think Evernorth is going to be a good opportunity. Again, you should do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Not advocating for you to invest in it. I think that we will probably take a position with some of our clients. At least, I know some of the advisors over there at Digital Wealth Partners are looking at it. But yeah, I do think, it will definitely drive more demand for XRP, which would coincide with price appreciation. New York Stock Exchange new digital platform will enable tokenized trading experiences, including 24/7 operations, instant settlement, blockchain-based post-trade systems. Who might this partner be? Probably R3, if I was going to guess. Have to find out. Wild Sea says Dallas dinner was great. It was great to have you there. Appreciate you coming. They say Japan's 10-year now above 2.3. What do you think the Bank of Japan will do this Friday? Could an increase cause the carry trade to unwind? It absolutely could. But again, like I've talked about, I don't think they want to be the bearer of bad news or to blame for this happening. I think that they would much rather point to a scapegoat like oil spiking versus them being the bad guy in that situation and causing